lobby. Let's all go to the lobby, lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to Now Slaying, an It Slays podcast production where we break down the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I'm your not-so-humble host, Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And today on the show, we're going to be reviewing The Exorcist Believer, which was released October 6, 2023, exclusively in theaters. Now, normally, I'd ask if you were a big fan of the original Exorcist, Rowan, but that would kind of spoil our upcoming episode. So instead, I guess I'll just ask, were you a big fan of David Gordon Green's Halloween trilogy? And based on that, were you looking forward to his take on The Exorcist?
You know, I guess if people recall from our wild Halloween Ends episode with me and Exilia, where we championed the movie everyone hated, I enjoy David Gordon Green. Obviously, I'm probably most familiar with him, like, through HBO and The Righteous Gemstones and Eastbound and Down and kind of him and McBride's comedy stuff. But I was a big fan. Like, 2018 Halloween is probably one of my most rewatched Halloweens other than, like, the original and 2. I think it kind of encapsulated kind of the best of John Carpenter and what that series, you know, should have been and could have been. I was very vocal against Kills. I didn't, you know, Kills I just thought was garbage. And then I really liked what he did with the end. So when I had heard he was doing The Exorcist, I had to, you know, I know there was a lot of the internet, Letterboxd, everyone was griping, and they're like, oh my God, he's about to ruin another franchise. But I was over here, pumped up, ready, got my DGG shirt on, like, I heart DGG. I got my tickets in advance. I was ready to go. What about you, Colton?
I do not have an I Heart DGG shirt. I certainly wouldn't make a film about it either. But I do like Pineapple Express.
Oh,
that was
yeah.
a good movie. When I was growing up, I enjoyed that. I liked his Stronger movie with Jake Gyllenhaal, but Jake Gyllenhaal is just such a great actor that he kind of elevates whatever he's in pretty much. And similar to yourself, I really do like the 2018 Halloween requel, legacy sequel, whatever you want to call it. I thought that was a pretty good take on Halloween. I liked how it modernized a lot of it. Still kind of paid respect to the source material, but also had some good humor weaved in. Like on a rewatch, I think some of it kind of is a little bit silly. But I remember when I first watched that at the Toronto International Film Festival, I absolutely adored it. So was I looking forward to this? Not really. I hated Halloween Kills. I hated Halloween Ends. And it was essentially the sort of thing where I was like, I don't know if I really have faith that he could make good on The Exorcist name. Also, The Exorcist, just, you know, obviously as like kind of a pinnacle of the horror movie canon, it's kind of a hard movie to follow up anyways. There's going to be all these expectations put onto it. And from what I understand, a lot of the sequels weren't really held in high regard. So yeah, I was very cautious about this movie. I guess what I would say is I certainly wasn't a believer that this was gonna do well. So yeah, I guess we'll see. Was I right for doubting it, or is this maybe the best requel in recent years? Before we get into that, how about we throw it on over to the trailer?
My daughter Angela, she's light and hope. 2 weeks ago, I'm talking about Angela skipping a grade.
Dad?
Now they're talking to me about an exorcism.
This has to work.
We're going to do everything we can to help our daughters.
There are 2 heartbeats. Is it working? They're beating in sync.
Come on home.
Rated R. Only in theaters October 6th.
What you just heard is from The Exorcist Believer, directed by David Gordon Green and written by David Gordon Green and Peter Sattler. And the story is as follows. When 2 girls disappear into the woods and return 3 days later with no memory of what happened to them, the father of one girl seeks out Chris McNeil, who's been forever altered by what happened to her daughter 50 years ago. Now here on Now Slaying, we like to keep things relatively spoiler-free up front before getting into the more in-depth spoiler-filled discussion. So Rowan, what are your spoiler-free thoughts on The Exorcist Believer?
Yeah, so this one is a difficult one for me to talk about. So, I mean, like most of these kind of requel type things, I think the homage to the series, to the original, was definitely there. I feel like he must have seen the movie, because there was a couple scenes he just ripped right out of the original, which we'll talk about more in the spoiler section. But you know what? Overall, like, I didn't hate how it looked necessarily. I thought there was definitely like some wonky CGI in this, which is a shame. Just because, I think about like we were just talking about how great Halloween 2018 was. And I just feel like, David Gordon Green is good, I think, when he's telling these like kind of down to earth personal stories. But as I felt, with the Halloween franchise, is this, he's entering a whole different realm. He's entering a religious, mystical realm. And I feel like he was really like losing everything as this story went on. Like, a lot of the ideas in this seemed like really half-baked. It seemed a lot of just kind of like, what could be like like a little jump scare we could put here, because we have zero scare like going on at this. There's no like kind of dread, even when, it isn't a spoiler when we talk about, in the trailer, like, we know it's like 2 girls go missing, they show up 3 days later. And like that whole period to me there should really be like this, like, oh my God, where are they? What happened to them? All this stuff. But I just found myself like throughout this movie just not caring about like anything that was going on, because he didn't make me need to care about anything, or I felt he didn't overly explain everything, which is a shame, because I think at the base, them going into this, I can see a lot of the choices and what I think their intentions were, how they wanted to kind of make this different, kind of update it, things like that. But it almost just felt like he was just doing stuff to do stuff, no real thought or rhythm to it, which is a shame, because I think a couple of the performances in this are really well done. I think what kind of little we get of Ellen Burstyn, like, she's amazing in this. Like, she does a great job. And when she came in, I felt it was ramped up, and then we kind of dropped the ball on that. The kids, I mean, I'm interested to see how you felt about the kids. I mean, the kids are, I don't know, whatever to me in this story. And Leslie Odom Jr., I thought, was probably the best thing in this movie. It's someone that, like, obviously I've seen him and stuff, but, we were discussing beforehand, I hadn't seen Hamilton, so I guess I don't know, like, the massive thing that he's known for. I was like really impressed with him. Like, now I'll be looking for him and stuff, because I thought he was one of the only things that like really held this together, because his arc as a father and the kind of the trauma he was going through, like, he was the only one I really, really like felt any like compassion or sympathy for. What about you? Like, what are some of your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I also agree. I think Leslie Odom Jr. is the best part of this movie. I actually think the guy's a really good actor. He just has a really bad agent. A lot of the movies he winds up in, he's actually like one of the stronger parts of it. It's just, once again, he winds up in a movie that is fairly unremarkable, such as this one. This one is, I don't know, this is a bit of a rough reviewer, or it's hard to kind of separate my ideas from like The Exorcist and this movie, because once again, obviously by just attaching The Exorcist title onto this movie, you go in with higher expectations. But like, if this was just literally like I don't know, Insidious 7 or something, it'd kind of be like, oh yeah, it's not a very good Insidious movie, but it's fine. It's probably not the worst one, at least I was entertained, There's just, you're expecting a little bit more when the Exorcist title is attached to it. As for the children, I thought they were actually good. I didn't mind them at all. I mean, once again, it's a very like go for broke, elevated possession performance, are some of the scenarios in which they're in. kind of silly. Yep. But I don't really blame that on the kids. Once again, that's from like a direction or a script standpoint, like, you know, having someone like eat pages from a Bible or something, you know, it's just like inherently goofy. It's not really a great idea as like a scary scene. Ellen Burstyn, I thought was absolutely terrible. I think she sucked. I thought she was awful. And we'll get into it a little bit more in the spoiler discussion, but I think she was actually the worst element of the entire movie for me. But I also just think she didn't care. Just from knowing a little bit from behind the scenes, essentially she was really reluctant to come back. She didn't want to come back at all. And basically they backed up like the dump truck full of money and gave it to her. And then she used that to kind of, from what I understand, like start a scholarship for female actors or, you know, actresses. So it was kind of like, well, she gave a really half-assed performance and, you know, she's not featured in too much of the movie overall. It's just, I don't know, she did nothing for me at all in this movie. As opposed to for the rest of it, God, I don't know. I'm really grasping at straws to figure out, like, what I want to say about it. What I will say is that the cold open is pretty silly. I didn't like it. But after that cold open, I do think there is a section of the movie where it feels competent for about 20 to 30 minutes. And then once the horror starts kind of coming back into the movie, it's just basically completely lost me. Like there's a moment where it's almost like the red demon, you know, side of the face jump scare moment. And I was essentially like, okay, like, is that what we're doing with this movie? Are we just putting like random demonic jump scares throughout this thing? Like, is there no substance? And yeah, it just left me like wanting more. It's in so many different regards. I think the idea of essentially doubling the possession, you know, so it's like, oh, what's, you know, Exorcist 2, there should be 2 possessions, you know, there should be 2 girls that are possessed, instantly, I think weakens the whole movie because you now have 2 girls / 2 families that you need to flesh out, and one of them is very much more fleshed out in this movie by design, and once again, they chose the better family to flesh out with Leslie Odom Jr.'s family, but it's just, once again, it's like, well, why do we even care about this, like, I don't know, Republican MAGA family, essentially? why are we even following this family at all, other than to appease that demographic who are coming to the movie, and sadly they're kind of shitty people and wouldn't watch the movie if it was just literally focused on Leslie Odom Jr. and his daughter and his family. You know, it's just, there were certain aspects of the movie where I felt like they were trying to placate a larger audience, and I think it was to the detriment of the movie as a whole. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling.
I was going to say, I think the hard thing too with this was that they've already like built in the expectation, like we know this is a trilogy. So I felt that really hindered this, where I thought about, you know, obviously, like we said, like we're going to keep comparing this to like, you know, his run on Halloween, where I was like, you know, with Halloween, like if he had just given us that one movie, it would have been fine. Like I wouldn't have came in expecting a trilogy or anything, but I just felt with this, like it was always, everything was like building of this lore, like, hey, you guys know the Exorcist Deceiver is coming, like we're already shooting it.
Maybe, like, once again, there's somewhere to go, and maybe we'll talk about it in the spoiler discussion, but like there's not really enough interesting plot threads in this movie, in my opinion, to build a trilogy off of. Like there's some vagaries about like, oh, the greater world, or like where did the demon come from, or what's, you know, is this a Roman Catholic demon again, or is it something else? Like there's like hints at a greater world, but like I don't know, dude, like I don't want to come into the Exorcist Deceiver to be like, oh, surprise, Leslie Odom Jr. is possessed now or something, you know. It's just like, I don't know, there was nothing in this really that interested me in a sequel. The thing is that I'm sounding overly harsh on the movie, and the thing is, I don't think there is very many positive aspects about it. I do think the acting pretty much across the board, other than Ellen Burstyn in my opinion, is good. Do I like all the characters? No, but I do think it is pretty good. And what I will say is that I wasn't bored watching the movie, at least. And maybe that's an issue with an Exorcist movie because, you know, The Exorcist, the original one, is fairly slow paced for a large portion of it. And a lot of that is to the movie's benefit because it's fleshing out all these characters. This movie is kind of, after the initial 20 to 30 minutes, is pretty just stupid. And you're just kind of jumping around to all these different characters and trying to scare and set up weird little set pieces and whatnot, and it's just to a complete detriment of like fleshing out any more of these characters other than Leslie Odom Jr. So once again, it's not good, but I wasn't bored, I guess. I don't know. Were you bored watching this? How'd you feel on that front?
I felt it held my interest. I mean, I guess, like we said, I mean, I don't know if it's just, my deep love of DGG, but, I tried to give him his space. I tried to say, hey, man, I'm going to give you a shot with Exorcist Deceiver to win me back on this one. Your number twos haven't been very strong, so I don't know, the only thing that could really bring me into The Exorcist Deceiver is if it opens with Leslie Odom Jr., a close-up of his face, and then he just screams, "Evil dies tonight." And I'm like, oh shit, we're connecting it. Then I'm back in. I'm fully on board. But I think you kind of said it like exactly how it needs to be said. I think the biggest disappointment of this movie is just how bland and kind of average it is. I just kind of, it just, you really wanted it to excite you, and even if it's, a slow burn like the original, and then, like the original, it's like balls to the walls, like your last 20 minutes, right? And you're like, holy shit, yeah. Where this, it just, like you said, I think the strongest part is kind of in the middle section there, but they keep that going for 20 minutes and then just kind of lose the ball again. And as much as I said, I did enjoy Ellen Burstyn's thing, I think where she didn't want to do this, you could just kind of tell that there was definitely, they knew that. It almost seemed like there was like a lot of rewrites with her character or something, because there was a lot of stuff that just isn't explained with her character, and the like weird cut stuff like that. But yeah, I think you're kind of hitting the nail right on the head.
Would you recommend this?
This one, probably not in the theater. Like, I mean, if this was on streaming, whatever. Like, you could watch this on streaming and probably be happy, but I wouldn't be rushing to the theater to watch this. And I don't know, it seems like not many people are. So, unfortunately, there's a lot of idiots out there that just, for some reason, hate Halloween Ends. And we let them on podcasts. We let them have space. And, yeah, but this isn't Halloween Ends, so I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend this either. Now, I hate Halloween Kills more than Halloween Ends, but neither of them are good in my opinion. And yeah, this one for me, I don't know, I'm a little conflicted on it just because a lot of it is just kind of like you said, it's just bland. And I think it just makes it worse because of the Exorcist name attached to it. We'll get into some of the silliness because there's a lot of stupidity in this movie too, and we'll get into that in spoiler discussion. But yeah, I don't think I can recommend this. I don't know. If you're a diehard Exorcist fan, maybe check it out on like Amazon Prime or something in 6 months' time. I don't know. It'll be on some streamer soon enough. They're gonna have to try and recoup some of that like $400 million investment for buying the rights to this. So I don't know what they're gonna do with that. This isn't coming close to making $400 million. They'll be lucky if it makes like 10% of that. So yeah, I guess that's neither of us would recommend this. And with that, I think it's time to cut to the spoiler discussion for The Exorcist Believer. We are now in our spoiler discussion for The Exorcist Believer, so if you've not seen The Exorcist Believer, it's time to tune out and come back once you've seen the movie, or keep listening if you simply do not care. Rowan, how about you kick things off with your spoiler-filled thoughts?
So I thought, let's start at the beginning. Because you kind of said how you didn't overly like it. I mean, obviously, they were going for some semblance of, the original starting in a different country. I thought I could see what they were trying to do with the thread, because they're in Haiti, and, our like lead character, the father, Victor, like his wife gets the blessing on the child, and, and the wife dies and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, like, this is fine. I actually did like the sound design in this section. I thought that was pretty well done. It was very chaotic. I enjoyed like just all the like kind of very similar to the normal Exorcist. Like I just enjoyed all the background noises going on, and I could feel like the anxiety of that.
Okay.
But it was kind of hard to swallow the earthquake and stuff. I don't know how tasteful it was to use like a real life incident.
Yeah, like the Haitian earthquakes.
Yeah. And that's not like the past. Like that's pretty recent. And
for me, it was more
weird.
so. Yeah, for me, it was just like, once again, like the chaos of it all. You have to convey the chaos of this earthquake to some degree, but like having like, I don't know, like car crashes in it, and like the ground opening up and all this stuff. It wound up being like San Andreas for a moment, like that bad The Rock movie. And I was just like, I thought I was here to see The Exorcist. Why is, like, I don't know, a car exploding or something? You know, why is Leslie Odom Jr. Jumping over vehicles or some shit, right? It was just like instantly goofy, where once again, I get what you're saying, where they're starting in a foreign country and whatnot, but like that intro scene of the original Exorcist is like so subdued by comparison, and they kind of already had us to a certain degree with like that blessing scene. Like that was already like, okay, you know, you're indulging in like another country's culture, you know, you're completely immersed in a different place on earth and rather than your own. And after that beat, I was kind of like, okay, where are we going with this? And it's like, oh, surprise earthquake that, like, obviously you need to make sure, like, the husband and his pregnant wife are separated. You have to make sure, like, the pregnant wife is in, like, I don't know, on an upper floor, and she's kind of trying to get down the stairwell while it's collapsing and all this shit. It was just, like, it was all too over the top. Like, once again, even if you wanted to do, like, the Haitian earthquake thing, you could have literally just had them in a car going back to the hotel, or a car going to church, or a car doing anything, and could have just had a car crash. And that could have been it.
Yeah.
You know, and it could have been, like, a car crash as a result of the earthquake, like a sinkhole, or, you know, a piece of building falling over or something, you know, anything. You could have went on a smaller scale, but like it literally turns into like a goofy action sequence for, I don't know, probably like 3 minutes. And it was just, I don't know, it didn't really do much for me.
Well, and I like the threat. I like the idea of, you know, the original Exorcist. We deal with a mother and a daughter that isn't, you know, the father's basically absent. So I do like the idea of this kind of switching to this father and daughter relationship and focusing on that. But like you said, like we could kill the mom maybe in not such a way that I'm expecting Dwayne Johnson to swing on in and just grab her and, you know, I don't know, win her over with his big muscles or something. But it's like I said with this whole thing, it's like the threads are there where I'm like, this could be an interesting movie. Also, I think this just suffers way too much from too many characters.
Oh, 100%. And what's crazy about this is they don't even focus on the characters that you should be focusing on in an Exorcist movie, right? Like the priest, oh my god, dude, it's so bad. Like he's in probably 5 minutes tops of the movie before he's begging like the diocese to like give him, you know, permission to perform an exorcism, right? It's like there's a moment where I feel like he's walking in the background talking with Ann Dowd, like in the background while someone else is talking over them talking. And then there might be one other scene where like he bumps into someone to introduce himself or something. But then they literally cut to a scene with him at the diocese at one point, like pleading. He's like, I've prayed with these girls. I've witnessed what they've gone through and all this stuff. I'm like, bro, you haven't been in the movie at all. What do you mean that you've exhausted everything that you've gone through and ensured that, you know, they're actually possessed and all this shit? I'm just like, you haven't been in the movie literally at all. There must be like 15 minutes of scenes cut with this guy. Like it'd be like if Father Karras wasn't in the original Exorcist at all, other than like saying hello to Ellen Burstyn one day, and then all of a sudden he's like pleading with the diocese to get approved for an exorcism. It was just so goofy. And then even when he does come into the movie, he just comes in, he gets his head twisted around within like I don't know, a minute. It's just like a complete waste of a character. And it's just, I'd rather him not be in the movie at all, I think, rather than be in there to the degree he is. I would have been completely fine if they chose to like use a different religion's ways of exorcising this demon, or if they would have really doubled down and basically said like, hey, this is a demon from a different place in, you know, the world, so we have to use something else. But once again, the movie's so wishy-washy about all these things where it's like, they're leaving it open that it's possibly, you know, Pazuzu or, you know, a traditional demon. They're leaving it open that this is a demon that originated from Africa, so maybe it should be exorcised with, you know, like African, almost like, you know, witch doctor rituals to a certain degree. It's like leaving it open that it's like, oh, maybe just the power of love can get rid of this. Like, it's just incredibly goofy all around and ill-considered, that I was just like, what is this movie? I'm kind of fine with The Exorcist not being truly like tied to Catholicism, even though like obviously the term and the, you know, the history of exorcism is, you know, I think completely intertwined with Catholicism. But, you know, if they wanted to make it very obvious from the beginning of the movie that this wasn't the case, I could have been open to that. But like the third act of this movie is like, they don't want to explain what it is, but they also wanted to appeal to a bunch of different people with a bunch of different belief systems. And, you know, basically they didn't want to like push anyone out. They wanted everyone to feel like, oh, I could be there at this, you know, this exorcism scene. I was half expecting Ellen Burstyn to walk in blind with a cane there and start exorcising at the end of the movie.
Yeah, well, and I mean, yeah, this is probably the time to have that conversation. Like, I thought the entire time that Ellen Burstyn was gonna be in The Exorcist.
So she makes a comment that she's not in the original room during The Exorcist due to the patriarchy, is what she says, which to a certain degree, I think we kind of mentioned that maybe a little bit on our review. We certainly discussed that she wasn't in the room for sure, but it's also funny to make that statement like so blatantly. And once again, it's like, it's kind of pandering in my opinion for, you know, to just be like, oh, it's due to the patriarchy. And it's like, it doesn't even sound like it'd come out of this, you know, woman's mouth, but also like the delivery and whatnot. It feels very much like a David Gordon Green line that would be in like, you know, one of the Halloween movies. But it's also like, you criticize the first movie for doing that, and then she's not in the exorcism scene for this movie either. So why isn't she in this one?
Well, and
quote
I felt
unquote,
like
the
they
patriarchy
had both.
Yeah, and also like quote unquote, the patriarchy actually gouged out her eyes and left her in a hospital bed for, you know, half of this movie. You know, it's just like, okay.
I did love, like, when they gouge out her eyes, like, I did not expect that. I was like, okay, she's gonna, you know, come and be part of the exorcism. So I love that, but I was like, we could still gouge out her eyes and then her still make it to like the exorcism.
Oh my, you wanted a blind Ellen Burstyn to walk in with her cane, raise her hand up like she has the force or something. That scene, dude, is so goofy. The movie like emphasizes that she's never performed an exorcism, but she has learned absolutely everything about it, every single culture's variation of exorcising demons, every religion's variations, and then she just walks into a room. She has no religious text, she has no religious like artifacts or crucifix or anything with her. She just literally raises her hand up, and then she's like, Pazuzu, I've returned, I command you to leave, or whatever. And it's like the goofiest shit ever, and I think they were trying to go for like an epic moment, but I was like bursting out laughing. It was so bad that I was just like, oh my god, like if William Friedkin saw this, he'd be like offended, like the how little they cared about like making sure it was like an actual exorcism, you know, or that Ellen Burstyn's character Chris like actually, you know, knew how to perform an exorcism. It was just like so half-assed. It was very much like I felt like Ellen Burstyn didn't want to like actually do anything. I think she just wanted to show up. I feel like they filmed her in like her mansion in real life for the beginning of the movie. Then she was in 3 sets. One was like possessed little girl's bedroom, one was the hospital bed, and I don't know, there was probably one other one I'm forgetting, you know, that she was in. It was just, I don't know, it was very strange.
I need to go back to your other point, and you know, I promise, keep listening to me, don't shut it off. And yeah, the key issue with this is inclusion, and the issue is that we included the Catholicism and the white people in this because I really thought we were going to go down the thread of, like you said, like, I was like, okay, we're going to use more of this, like, mysticism, more, like, rooted in, like, Caribbean and African culture. And I was like, you know what? I could get down with this. Like, if this movie was, we're going to fight it from this end and not really, like, and not include Catholicism in it, I'd be 100%, because there's lots of, you know, when you think about, like, the origin of stuff like zombies and a lot of demon stuff, like, does come from African mysticism and African religions. And I was like, okay, this is an interesting take on it, something I haven't seen done in any of the sequels, something I've never really seen done in a possession movie. So I was like, at least there, I'm getting something I've never seen. But because you've got to service the people that are coming because the Exorcist is on the poster, then, we got to have the priest. And it's not that we have a priest that's neck gets turned. We also they have, like, an evangelical priest that's basically,
that's
like,
true. I forgot about them.
A new church guy, which... Honestly, if this is going to be 3 movies, if we're going to include anyone, I would have liked to include that guy first, because that guy needed to, like, get got, because, I mean, fuck the evangelical people, really. Like, especially, like, he was, like, sleazy, like, they made sure you knew he was just kind of like this, like, new church. I was getting, like, Righteous Gemstones feel from this, like, mega church, just, like, fancy suits, like, looking spiffy. But even if it was, like, this push and pull of Catholicism and this mysticism, but yeah, it's like, no, let's include, like, we have, you know, an atheist in the room, we have this in the room, and
yes, you have representatives from all these different religions all trying their own things to combat a demon that we don't really know where it's from. And by doing that, it's so, like, inspecific that, like, we just don't care. And that was kind of the thing. I think it's a more interesting movie too if you just focus on Leslie Odom Jr. and his daughter, and you can do some sort of traditional Caribbean, some traditional African demon, some way of exorcising it. And even if you want to go the route that, like, they can't exorcise it or it fails, or, you know, like, once again, kind of similar to the original, that they got to take very drastic measures, I think it's a far more interesting movie. This movie is just literally, like, once again, due to just trying to appeal, like, to the most broadest crowd possible, it's just, in my opinion, it just kind of leaves everyone out, or, like, everyone just doesn't really care. And yeah, like, sadly, you know, I feel like the people that are, like, let's say super religious for whatever reason that would go see this, like, let's say as, like, a real portrayal of a demon, for whatever reason, these people also happen to, you know, be Republican, maybe a little bit racist, maybe a little bit intolerant. And quite frankly, I just don't think they would have watched a movie where purely there was a black lead father and a black lead daughter as, like, the main, you know, source of emotion, like the driving force of the movie. And that's really sad to say, but I just feel like they would have been like, I'm not watching that. That's too woke for me. You know, like, just because by having people of color in your movie instantly makes the movie
they're
woke,
already
right?
they're already saying, all your fucking Ben Shapiro's are already putting out the woke exorcism movie reviews. So
yeah, well, I mean, they tried to include representatives from their, you know, their belief systems. Like, once again, like, that white family that's very much like white picket fence family with 3 kids going to a mega church is, like, pretty much that demographic for the most part, right? Like, so it's just like, once again, I think that weakens the story overall. It's not interesting. If you would have wanted to just do, like, the basic, you know, version of just literally have, you could have had them go into a mega church. It could have just been this white family and whatnot. I also don't think that's very interesting, but I guess it would have been very much appealing to a different crowd. I don't know. It's just, once again, by expanding your net so wide to have all these characters, it just makes all of them underdeveloped, and it's just like there's not really too much interest in the movie. Like, once again, there's no specificity there to kind of drag us in. It just feels also stupid. Like, everything in this movie feels stupid. Even like whatever ritual they're doing in the woods, we basically get no explanation for what they're doing, why they're doing it, how they're doing it. What, you know, how many times have they done this before? We don't even know if they're, like, good friends or not. It seems like they're not even good friends because the families don't know each other or anything. So it's just like everything about this movie is so, like, stupid and so wishy-washy that, like, I don't care about anything. And by the time you get to the end of the movie, all of the threads that were even remotely interesting have already unraveled to a point where it's just stupid.
My thoughts was it should have focused on Victor and Angela and even the relationship with her neighbor, Nurse Ann. Because to me, that would have been a movie, because you have two people that essentially, you know, like Nurse Ann's kind of out of religion, even though she is a religious person. And then you have Victor, who's an atheist and doesn't believe in any of this, but kind of these two people that have, like, you know, fallen out of or don't believe in religion. And then, like we said before, like, then how do they face, like, what's going on? So very much it could have been in the tone of The Exorcist, but in different ways. Because I did enjoy, like, Ann Dowd's, like, I thought she was she was really probably one of the most developed characters for the, like, background characters.
To be fair, she probably is one of the more developed characters. She's probably like second or third in the movie, which is insane. That is the case. But I also don't know if I like the casting choice. And once again, I think it's just like a holdover from Hereditary and stuff. But for whatever reason, when you kind of put Ann Dowd in that, like, neighbor who's involved with the occult, maybe it's only been Hereditary, but for whatever reason, instantly when Ann Dowd is in the movie, it's just instantly I'm like skeptical. And also, she's a little bit too recognizable of a face that I know when she shows up in something, she's going to be more than just like having a line or two, right? Like, she's going to be more of a supporting character. So it was just, she was good, but it was just like she was a little bit distracting as well.
So I told myself coming into this review, I would at least say like one positive thing, one good, you know, spoiler thing. And I will say, what, you know, when we were talking about where this really worked, the scene I thought like really worked, which I wish the whole movie felt like, was where he is like taking portraits of just like this random white family, and kind of the way it's shot, like the family almost, even though there's nothing going on other than like a rambunctious kid, like while he's shooting them, like they shoot it kind of in this like slowed frame rate, but like there's this tension built up, like it's almost demonic, like you almost feel like the demonic presence there, and that like there's something going on. Like they make this kid, even though it's just yelling and playing, like look animalistic and stuff like that. And like, to me, that's where this worked. I was like, I need like a whole thick section in this movie of just like this eerie feeling that like something's off, something's going on. But like those moments were just not there. They were so few and far between.
What's funny is I never even got that from that moment. To me, like, honestly, it just felt like an awkward photo shoot. It felt like Leslie Odom Jr. was a little bit distracted on like his job, like he couldn't focus on it, and it was just like he was struggling to keep that one kid in check. That was literally it. And then you looked at all the photos and they all looked like shit. And then there was a power outage that somehow made his laptop screen like distort completely, and all their faces got real strange. And I cracked up laughing at that point. I was the only one in the theater, but I busted out laughing.
See, and that was my issue. I felt that part cheapened the rest of that scene.
To me, it was never a very good scene, but I mean, I guess I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Did everyone jump scare at the snake in your theater? Everyone in our theater, the snake was the scariest part.
Yeah, I think there was a couple people that jumped at that. Speaking of like that sequence, just like with the snake and whatnot, what do we think about the ending of the movie with the I choose Catherine and like that little sequence where she's in the water and it's like this voice goes, I choose Catherine, and these hands come up and grab her and basically drag her to hell? For whatever reason, I got some mad Freddy Krueger vibes from that. Just like the hands coming up like and grabbing her and then dragging her back. It just reminded me of like Freddy's definitely done the exact same movement in so many of the movies, and even like the vocal treatment of the like I choose Catherine, it sounded almost like Freddy. I was just like, what movie am I watching?
Yeah, that whole part was silly, and and they kind of like try to show like the demonic figure, and like it just didn't look good. It didn't make sense. I mean, the whole actual exorcism part was just kind of it just wasn't executed well. I mean, this is probably where we should talk about this is where we're getting like egregious CGI.
Let's talk about it's vapors from inside, the start of an eruption. Which I was just like, what are we watching here? This like mystical, golden smoke coming from these two girls. I was like, I understand they have to like show like the soul or show like evil or something, but it was just like, it was some goofy ass shit, dude. I don't even know what that was.
Yeah, I mean, I was assuming maybe just big fans of Dr. Sleep, so.
Yeah.
Maybe these exist in the same universe or something. The vampires were just outside waiting to suck those vapors up. Is this my like old man yelling at a cloud moment where I'm just like, of course we have to have the vapors because no one can just be like, okay, they were possessed. Like, we gotta see it. We have to see some physical manifestation of like this evil coming out of them, or the soul or the life coming out of them. Like,
but like spitting out black or something could do that, right? Or like it leaking out of their eyes and ears and stuff. You can get like pretty crazy with it, right? Like
vomiting green shit all over the place. Like,
I understand like in 2023 why they don't want to like vomit pea soup everywhere, but I mean, it's just like there is other probably more unsettling ways that they could have done this, because the whole point of this is just like the objection from the body. You're basically just spewing this stuff out of you and you can't control it. That's why it's just like, what if it's seeping out of your skin? What if it's seeping out of your eyes, your ears, your nose, everything? Like, you can make this look unsettling and weird and gross, and they just completely failed at it. Also, just in literally the like structuring the exorcism, where they put the two girls back to back. One of them is in like an old wooden chair. One of them's in like a little comfy, like, I don't know, almost like a reading chair or something. I was just like, why would you do that? And I was like, was it purely for like the reason that like one of the girls was taller than the other or something like that? Like, I have no idea why they do that. It was just such a weird thing. Like, if you were going to build this set, or if you were going to do this in real life, you'd probably just grab two chairs that you had nearby and like screw them down. Why did one girl get this old crude wooden chair? One girl got this comfy, snug thing. It was just, maybe I'm like hyper fixated on like something that's really strange, but it was just like, why? What an odd detail. Also, the whole movie kind of hinging on this question of like, would you choose your daughter over the other daughter? I'm like, you mean this other girl that you literally don't know, that you didn't recognize her, didn't know was your best friend, don't know anything? Like, I think most parents, maybe they wouldn't explicitly say it in front of the other parents, but like, I mean, most parents are probably going to choose their kid over another kid, right? Like, it was like a no-brainer for me. Like, once again, maybe you don't verbalize it, maybe you have some tact, but I feel like all parents would feel that deep down, right? Like, I don't know, dude. It's such a strange like thesis to hang your whole movie on. I like conceptually the idea that if he didn't want to choose his daughter, like in Haiti, like he actually chose his wife. But once again, that's a stronger beat if it's literally just his daughter and the other girl's not even there, right? It's just a stronger beat, like completely, where it's like, oh, you thought that he chose his daughter, but actually there's been like some resentment building up. There's been basically, this might have been a long time coming. The demon's kind of picking on his guilt and all that stuff. It's just a stronger movie overall.
Just David Gordon Green, call us up. We'll work out Deceiver for you.
Well, I was gonna say, nah, I'm good, but of course, that sort of thing came across my desk. I'd 100% do it. But it's also like, you started things off on a really bad foot. It's gonna be hard to correct the course here, and like, I don't know, this movie's not doing well in theaters, and we'll see if even like Deceiver, you said it's already in production.
Yeah, I think they've already started doing it.
Dude, I don't know, they should probably pull the plug on that, or at least put it back into pre-production, figure something out, because I don't know how you make an interesting movie based off of what we just saw. I'd have to basically do another reboot. I don't know. And maybe the Exorcist TV show is a little bit better. I have seen some people saying that.
I love the Exorcist TV show.
Okay, like I saw some people saying that had way better ideas. So maybe it's just literally you watch the Exorcist TV show and you steal some of those ideas, or you take aspects of it and like flesh them out a little bit more, make something more interesting. I have no idea.
Well, I don't want to get you all tingly and excited, but you know what the Exorcist TV show is like? It's like the Pope's Exorcist. It's just,
oh shit.
each season is a different family. There was only 2 seasons, and no one watched the show. It was a shame because the show was creepy, twisty, had amazing casts. Like the first season's Gina Davis. But it's literally just like a drunken priest. It's very much in the vein of the original Exorcist, of like an older priest, a drunken, like losing faith priest, and they're just fucking going around towns, fucking exorcising demons.
Oh man, that's what this movie was missing. I needed a Vespa to pull up at the final exorcism, and for Russell Crowe just to dawdle in, all red-faced, half drunk. You know, throw his flask on the ground and shatter it, and it would have been a much stronger movie if that happened, I think. Anything else we need to get into before we start rating this? I feel like we said a lot and nothing at all, so hopefully people enjoyed that. If you're new to the podcast, our review rubric is nay, okay, yay, or slay. So, Rowan, what would you give The Exorcist Believer?
So this is kind of weird. So we literally, you know, for like 40, 50 minutes just, you know, obliterated and trashed a movie. But I'm gonna give it an okay. Like it's not offensively bad. It's just so blah. So it's like a very soft okay. Like, you know, you're gonna watch this and you're gonna say, oh, okay, and then you're gonna basically just forget about it. And so this is, you know, I don't want to keep making the case for everybody needs to rewatch Halloween Ends, but hear me out. Listen,
No.
Halloween
No.
Ends, at least David Gordon Green was willing to take a wild, whether it worked or not, swing and say, I'm going to do something that's not like anything that has ever been done in this franchise. And you know what? Even if you don't like the movie, you have to respect like someone going out on a limb and trying something, where it was kind of like the safest move possible, but then they fumble that. Like they just couldn't land the plane. You could have just made this not an Exorcist movie, just a run-of-the-mill possession movie, and I feel like we might have been nicer to it. It might have been like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. You know, this is, you know, the possession of whoever. And that would have been fine. But to me, you know what? David Gordon Green, I respect you for taking the swings. And I wanted you to take a swing. Like I said, to me, I was hoping it was going to be like, guess what? Like, you don't want woke Exorcist? Well, guess what? You're getting like an all black Exorcist with, you know, this like mysticism and like a different religion. And I would have been all for that. And I would have been like, wow, yeah, like at least someone is doing something different than the same shit this franchise continues to try to feed you. But he didn't. And I just felt like it was a scared move. It was like, I can't mess this up, so I'm going to be safe with it. And sadly, when you're too safe, you get an okay, a soft okay from me. What about you, Colton? What would you rate it?
Oh, man, this is tough because I don't really want to say it's okay, but also I kind of do begrudgingly have to say that I didn't hate my time watching it. That's the thing. I do think it's really stupid. I think so much of it literally is bad. But once again, it was just like, it was just easy to consume. It was just like, whatever. Yeah. It didn't offend me. You know, I constantly saw ways how to improve this as I was watching it. But it's just, we watch so much stuff that's actually truly worse, in my opinion. This is just like really disappointing, and also just, it just kind of gets away from him. It's just I don't really know how to describe it. It's an interesting case study of a movie to watch and just kind of see all these baffling choices that he made that like it just doesn't work. There is a kernel of a decent idea in here that we've mentioned, where you focus the movie on an all-black cast, you make it more so about mysticism, you explore other cultures and other religions, and that would have been a far better movie. There's probably also a good movie that literally isn't just like a possessed girl or two possessed girls, that it just kind of takes the Exorcist franchise in a little bit of a different direction. You still have like an exorcising a demon, but maybe it's not a possessed child this time. Maybe you figure out another way to actually, you know, make the audience care about whoever's possessed.
Maybe you had 3 possessed girls. That's what it needed. Another possessed girl.
Well, that's going to be the deceiver, right? It's going to be 3 possessed kids. It's going to be like, I don't know, triplets, and they're all possessed or something. I don't know. It's just like, yeah, I don't care. One thing I'll be thankful for the movie, I guess, is that it gave me some new Jesus lore. I never knew that Jesus went to hell and basically kicked demon ass for 3 days and then came back. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I have never heard that, and that's explained in this movie as like a rationale for why the girls have burned feet, because they went to hell for 3 days like Jesus. And I was just like, what? And then also, I guess, you know, I will just say that the movie saying that you got to give something to get something in return is so beautiful when Ellen Burstyn gives up her eyesight to see her daughter again. That's, you know, this
we didn't even say Linda Blair with the hand performance.
Oh my God, it was just whatever. You know, it's just it's so goofy. Yeah, God, I don't know. I guess I'll give it the slightest okay. I don't even know what I'm gonna rate this, because once again, I don't feel positively about it. I think it's a bad movie. It's just a bad movie that I'm kind of like, I didn't hate it. I don't know what I rated that Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. I think that was like earlier this year, right?
Oh, yeah. Was that? Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. Was it last year? I don't know. Yeah. But whatever I rated that is what I'd rate this, where it's just literally like, yep, it's bad, but it's kind of entertaining, I guess, and it's over fairly quickly. I do think this one's longer, but once again, it's paced in such a way that it didn't drive me crazy. So I guess like the slightest okay. But once again, I still wouldn't recommend that you rush out and see this thing. And if you made it this far in the podcast and you're not following us on our socials already at It Slays Podcast, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, / your Letterboxd, Threads. Anybody even using Threads? It's in my list, but like,
yeah, I don't know. There's some people that use it. I feel like it's dying pretty quick.
Do we have like 10 followers on Threads? I guess, you know, Threads, for all you thread heads out there, you want to let us know that you listen on Threads.
I think we're almost up to 100 now.
Oh, really? Okay, well, all right. Maybe I won't hate too much. Well, and Blue Sky, which I do have a Blue Sky account now, but I still haven't posted a single thing. So follow us there at It Slays Podcast. If there's a social media, we're probably there at It Slays Podcast. And if you want to help us support the show financially, like our horror hounds, Holly, Nicholas, Patrick, Mark, Steven, Joy, and Kirby, gain access to the Patreon exclusive show Stream Screams and get episodes of the main show 48 hours early, be sure to head on over to patreon.com/itslayspodcast and choose whatever tier works best for you. Now, Rowan, go ahead and plug the playlist.
So it's spooky season, so it's time to get your spooky music on. So go to the It Slays Podcast horrific playlist on Spotify. If you have any problems finding it, you can go to any of the social media that Colton just mentioned, go into the bio, the Linktree link is there. Click it, it'll take you right there. We upload scores or licensed music from horror movies we reviewed, or iconic horror movies, or just horror movies we love. This one, I don't really remember anything from this one. Unlike the Halloween, where, you know, Carpenter kind of fancied up the Halloween music for that trilogy, I feel like they didn't really do much with this one. And if they did, it wasn't very noticeable. But you could go listen to the normal Exorcist theme song on our playlist. So you could just do that also. So yeah, go there, get your spooky music on, and enjoy.
And next time on the show, we're going to be covering Five Nights at Freddy's, which I'm looking forward to it. It should be, you know, it should be a silly watch at the very least. And yeah, with that, I think that about wraps things up for this episode. So until next time, I'm Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And as long as you keep listening, we'll keep slaying.